Hey there, welcome back. I'm Diane Conklin with Queer Profits Podcast, where we talk about and stand for three things, as always: inclusion, community, and growth. And yes, this time I remember it. Half the time I can't remember the third thing, which is always very important. So as always, or not as always, but today I have a very special guest with me that I'm really excited to talk to and let you guys experience and get some wisdom from. James Nowlin. James is with XL Global Partners, and as always, I'm going to let him tell you more about that. But I just want to say, thank you for your time today. I'm honored and excited to have you here and see what things we can get into.
Well, thanks so much for having me, Diane.
Absolutely, my pleasure. James, tell us a little bit about kind of who you are and what you do, and then we'll go from there.
All right. Well, thanks again. So I am a keynote speaker. I'm an executive coach, and I'm CEO of XL Global Partners, which is a corporate strategy and financial IT consulting firm. I started it about maybe 12 or 13 years or so ago after I left my practice as a corporate attorney and grew it on up. And my husband joined me in the company about 8 or 9 years ago. And we've done business in about 15 countries worldwide and in about 20 different states.
Wow. So tell us a little bit more specifically. I got the technology part. Tell us a little more specifically about what you do and how you help people.
Yes. So our typical client is anywhere from a mid-market company to a Fortune company, and we help them with any kind of change that they're going through. So it can be operational change or financial strategy change. And we're the experts that come in and help CEOs get their acts in order. We also have an executive coaching practice that sits underneath our corporate strategy practice group. So I get to work with a lot of CEOs and a lot of people in the C-suite who've got high amounts of stress in their jobs and bring some wellness techniques and strategic techniques into their lives and into their businesses so that they can enjoy life more and run better businesses as well.
Wow, there we go. So let's talk about that. So let's talk about what maybe the top three things that you typically, and I know there's no standard and all that, but just some typical things that you would go into and talk about with business owners and CEOs that will help them not only certainly with their own wellness, but that is this then going to reflect back obvious to the wellness of their companies, right?
Mm-hmm. I think the first thing, Diane, is that, working with a C-suite executive or a CEO that's under a lot of pressure, you've got to teach them what got you here is not the game that's going to keep you here or the game that's going to take you to the next level. And a lot of them think that by grinding it out or by doing the things that they did in a position prior to where they are today, that it's still going to work for them in the future. And that's the reality. Well, the reality is that that's not the best key to survival or thriving in the workplace. So we try to incorporate different practices into being the best and most optimized version of oneself in the workplace. And that includes self-awareness exercises, emotional intelligence exercises, and also getting people to stop and meditate, to slow down. And by slowing down, people can actually speed up productivity, they improve communications, and they have a more elevated experience in the workplace just by taking a deep breath, slowing down, getting their thoughts in order, getting their communication strategy in order so that they don't have to do damage control around some decisions that they made or things that they said. And so as a coach, I get to really work with people on that more optimized expression of self in the workplace. And there are a lot of things that we can do to increase efficiency. And one of them is just getting them to communicate better. We tell people all the time, you're not just responsible for what you say. You're responsible for how it's received. You're responsible for how it is received. That means your team members, your spouse, people who you come across in public, you're responsible for what you say and how it is received. And when you do it well, and when you do it consistently, great results happen.
Wow, you packed a lot in that just a couple of minutes. So let's, I did the dagger in the heart thing because that's one of my things always. I can remember my dad saying, Diane, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And I hated it then as much as I hate it now. Just being honest, right? So let's back up a little bit, and then I'm sure there's enough in there we could talk for days about this, right?
Oh yeah.
So this whole idea of sort of the breathing and the meditation, right? Like, I would imagine that for a high type A, which is mostly who you're dealing with, exec, that's a tough that's a tough sell, right? Slow
Oh yeah.
down, meditate, breathe. Funny story. I don't have it up right now, but where you can see it, but I have a big black plaque. It's about, gosh, I don't know, maybe 12 and 15 inches. And it says breathe,
Hmm.
that I keep in my office. And interestingly, I had a friend who used to sit beside me in a lot of masterminds and things that we went to. And occasionally she would lean over to me and she would say, breathe, Diane. And finally one day, because, sometimes I'm a little slow on the uptake, after she did it, I don't know, 800 or 900 times, I'm kidding, just a few times. I finally leaned over and at a break, and I said to her, why do you always say that to me? And she
Hmm.
said, because you hold your breath.
Hmm.
And I never realized it until I then became more aware that so many of us actually do that, right? When we're not even so much stressed, but sometimes just when you're concentrating or you're trying to focus. And what we don't realize is that if we concentrate on that breathing and getting
Hmm.
oxygen in, we could actually do that better. So talk a little bit about kind of that piece of the meditation and the breathing and the slowing down, because I think what you said is so right on, right? We all think harder, faster, hustle, go,
Hmm.
go, 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 do, right? And we forget that we're human beings and become human doings.
Hmm. I'm actually breathing right now. I checked in with my breath as you were talking to me to make sure that I was fully present, listening to what you were saying to me, not thinking about what's going to be the next thing that I'm going to say, but that I'm listening to what she's saying, what she's asking, so that I'm not distracted, so that I'm not anxious about getting my words right. And as I do so, as I slow down with my breath, I can check in with my body. I can check in just emotionally, and I can focus on you and not be thinking about, oh, did I pay that bill? Or, oh, do I need to have this conversation with one of my employees? Or, oh, did I book that ticket for whatever? When we become fully present and when we listen to what the other person is saying without focusing on speeding up or getting to the next thing, there is an energetic vibration that happens in a conversation where it just becomes so fluid and so effective and so powerful, where we connect with one another, and we also walk away from the conversation feeling like I've been heard. Someone understood what I had to say, and we weren't just going back and forth, but we actually accomplished something. And that's really, really powerful. And so we work with people on that. Um, I was a hard charging type A type person, and my career was really on the super fast track in my 20s. And I wouldn't give people the second chance, the time of day that they actually deserved, because I was so focused on checking things off my checklist. Okay, let's get to this point in the conversation. Let's move on. And I was not allowing them an opportunity to get to know me. I was not listening to what others were saying. I was making too many mistakes based upon that. And sometimes I would even make mistakes based upon what supervisors or my bosses were saying to me, because I would not be present. And I was so focused on getting things done that they would tell me to do A, but I would actually end up doing B. And if I actually had these techniques uh, earlier in my career, my 20s, I could imagine advancing at an even faster rate. But I put so much daggone pressure on myself, Diane, to perform and to do, that it took me later in my career to realize you got to slow down to speed up. Check in with yourself, James. Check in. Did you hear the question the right way? Did you formulate your response the right way? Is this conversation going in the direction that you want it to go in? And so just by checking with the breath, deep breath in, deep breath out as the other person's talking to me, I decrease my anxiety and I become more and more present. And that leads to a really, really meaningful conversation with great outcomes.
So is it really that easy, right? I can sit here while I'm listening to
Oh,
you.
heck no. I mean, here's my checklist, Diane, of all the things that I've got to get done today, and that's my calendar. I mean, heck no, it's not that easy. And I think I'm going to be working until about 8 o'clock tonight. But you took the time out of your schedule to schedule this interview for me. And it's sacred time. We're connecting, and there's no separation of time or space. You might be in your office, I might be in my office right now. But when we divinely connect, honoring the time and the effort that somebody else put into something and give them our undivided attention, something magical happens in the vibrational frequency of that conversation. So it's hard to get used to doing that. It's hard to be fully present. The other thing is, once we get good at these techniques in the workplace, they directly translate and transfer to our personal relationships, and we can do the same with our spouse. And a lot of the time, a lot of disagreements and personal relationships come from, oh, I don't feel like you're hearing me. Or if we have a disagreement with a husband or wife or a significant other, a lot of the time we can look back on that conversation and, oh my gosh, what were we arguing about?
Right.
Well, the other person wanted to be validated. They wanted to be heard. And by giving them the attention that they deserve, and by them giving the attention that we deserve, we can reduce conflict.
Yeah. And sometimes just by you doing it, right? It doesn't always have to be, we always think, well, I did it, but they didn't, right? I heard them, but they didn't hear me. And sometimes you creating that space for the other person creates a change in them that allows them then to say, okay, I need to reciprocate, right?
You model the behavior. And so when we approach conversations or negotiations or conflicts with elevated consciousness, and we slow down and we talk positively and we pivot the conversation, the other person can't help but pivot as well. They're sensing, they're picking up on that energetic vibrational frequency around you, and they begin to listen, and they begin to change the cadence and how they're speaking and responding, and the conversation and the outcomes become so much more elevated. It's almost magic when you're sitting in the boardroom table or you're negotiating or having an argument. Just slow it down, breathe, and organically you've got this magical power to take the conversation to a whole different level just by slowing down and controlling what you can control best, and that is yourself.
Right. So this is interesting. So I can imagine that there's somebody out there, like a former piece of me, who's saying, yeah, I get it, James, I get it, Diane, I understand it, but I'm task oriented, and so I'm task oriented. So how do I, if you had somebody who said that to you, how would you maybe give them, what tips would you say? Because I tend to be task oriented, and so it's not that I don't love people. It's not that I don't genuinely have a heart for people. It's just that my nature, right, is to, let's get this done. And so I laughingly said to somebody, I was sitting at a Panera Bread not too long ago with a business associate, and we're working, we're doing things, and we're in the middle of something, and somebody walked up, right? And what was interesting was, because he's very people focused and I'm more task focused, he immediately stopped and looked up. And I continued, finished. And so we laughed about it, right? But what would you say to somebody who says, yeah, that's all great advice, but I'm just not wired that way?
If you want to get somewhere fast, do it alone. If you want to get far, do it with someone else. And when we're communicating and we're working together, that's a partnership. And if I'm just so focused on the task and getting things done, pop, 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 but I'm not allowing myself the privilege of getting to know this other person who's sitting across from me, and vice versa, then we're seeing each other on a much lower level than we can possibly see each other if we actually took the time to get to know each other. And we actually got to the realization that this is a partnership, and Diane is a person who's got a personality. She's got outside interest outside of work. She likes this kind of food. She likes this kind of music. And we have this in common. That's where the power comes in. When we have this in common, we bring the work experience to a whole different level, and we can get things done so much more quickly when we just take the time to focus on the task at hand and to get to know the person. We can become better bosses when we do that as well. If we're task-oriented bosses and we're not giving people the opportunity to get to know us, then we're not being the best possible boss that we can be. And we've got to get to know people as well, because it feeds people's souls when they hear their names, when they hear from someone who knows something about them on the human level. And they're not just worker bees, but they're actually human beings. And that human side is acknowledged. And that's what ignites people with the loyalty factor. We've got a good number of employees for our company. And I can't always compete on providing the highest salary. They can go to a Fortune company for doing that, although we do have very good compensation. But what we can do is create a wonderful workplace experience. And we treat people like human beings. We treat them like family. And we give them constructive feedback and guidance and developmental tools to be the best possible person that they can be in the workplace and out of the workplace. Because quite frankly, when you get to a certain level of responsibility and you're an executive or you're a CEO or you're a vice president that works for my company, sometimes there's not a lot of division between that personal space and the professional space, I mean, we take our jobs with us. If you're working 60 hours a week and traveling and you're responsible for this client or that account or whatever, there's a lot of work. There's a lot of work that you take with you all the time. And Diane, quite frankly, a lot of folks are happy at home, but they're not happy at work, or they're happy at work, but not happy at home. I believe you can be happy at both. And these are tools and techniques that you can take into the workplace and out of the workplace to create a happier existence, a higher level of sustainable consciousness, which helps you to reduce burnout, which helps you to create partnerships and friendships in the workplace where you're getting a lot of stuff done and you're getting a lot of meaningful work done, and where you feel proud of what you've accomplished as part of a team and individually. And there's nothing quite like that when you feel welcomed and a part of a united team at home and in the workplace as well. There's nothing quite like it.
Yeah. Yeah, the inclusion. So how do you, I know I hear a lot of people say, and talk about this piece of, the personal and the private, right? And so there's this, and I think this is not new, but it's newer, right? At my age, right? I'll be 57 this year. This is something that we didn't talk about when I was, a baby, coming through corporations and building my own business. This whole idea of, getting to know people and the personal side. So how do you, what advice would you give somebody about how to balance that piece of, being open and being themselves in the environment and yet not oversharing, if you will?
Well, the old school philosophy was, work hard, play hard. You go to work, you grind it out, and then, you do whatever you want to do in your free time and play hard or whatever if you want to be successful. There's so much that's coming into workplaces now in terms of psychology and cognitive behavioral therapy techniques and things that have worked in therapeutic practices that are actually being incorporated into workplaces. And so as an executive coach, that bifurcation, that hard line between personal space and professional space, that line is becoming a lot more blurred as we're bringing techniques in there that help people to have a better workspace experience. And that blurriness is actually something that I welcome because, quite frankly, these techniques work. These techniques work. I look forward to the day when the word mental health or getting help from psychological or therapeutic resources to be the best possible version of you is not something that, is looked down upon. These are powerful tools. These are powerful tools that help us to be the best possible version of ourselves. Now, for people who have a hard time sharing at work, I would say do this. Come up with 3 things that are things about you that you don't mind sharing with people in conversation. And one of those 3 things might be something that's a little bit personal. And that feeds people just a little bit into feeling like they know you. And then before you know it, you've kind of broken the ice on that personal level in the workplace. So for example, you can share with somebody if you're just used to, okay, I go to the workplace and I'm just going to be focused on sitting at my computer and getting my work done, and you're not connecting as well with others, just maybe do rounds. And next time you're in the break room or next time you're walking down the hallway and somebody talks to you, share something about yourself. Well, hey, by the way, I'm going to a concert this weekend and I've been trying to get tickets for this for so long. That conversation is a natural segue into something much broader than just that concert. And then that other person has planted a seed in his or her mind. Oh, Diane likes this kind of music, or this is one of her interests. And then before you know it, you've got a true relationship where you're looking beyond what are her capabilities and what's her job on a day-to-day basis. Pick those 3 things and just start sharing them. Just get a little bit personal. And then before you know it, you'll relax a little bit around some of the personal issues, and people welcome more of you. I know it's tough for some folks because they're super private, but just try to relax a little bit around it because people really want to get to know you.
Yeah, that's great advice. I love that. So you've talked about these techniques that you're using. Can you share, and obviously you just gave us one, and you've talked about the breathing. Can you give us maybe 1 or 2 other specific things that, let's switch it from, the corporate CEO to, for example, the small business owner, who's, and I know that's not who your specific target is, but certainly it's all applicable, right? Maybe they're working from home and have a virtual team, or maybe they have a small office kind of thing. What are some things that you would say to them or help them with in this regard as far as specific technique?
Oh, there's so much, and I could talk about this for days. But something that I really love to share with people is what I call SBS. It's stop, breathe, and smile. When you feel like you want to shoot out an email to a client or send it to one of your employees or say something on the phone or clap back at what somebody has requested of you, and your ego's just flaming up and you just got to get even in that circumstance, we're all human. And we have the feeling or the need to defend ourselves. But stop when you receive the communication, just take a deep breath and then smile. That helps the brain to trigger positive thoughts around a situation. And it also helps us to change our perspective around things. You know, other people who we work with and clients have stress too. Not of them, no, some of them are not as skilled in communication as we are. I've had clients, you know, who send one word texts or whatever, who send really, really punchy emails, but you've got to put yourself in their seat, their stress levels. And also you've got to understand that some of the folks might not have the coaching that you've had, or might not have the intentional path of awakening and presenting better in the workplace that you're actually on. So what we can do, Diane, is we can demonstrate excellence in communication. And excellence in communication sometimes means that we get credit for what is not said. And when we get to a really, really high performing level in our businesses, one of the main things that we're judged by is not what we say all the time, but what we don't say and how we handle situations with grace. And knowing that these people are under stressful deadlines, some of them are under the gun, some of them don't have the training that we have, but just relax and be graceful around that. And you'll find yourself having clients who appreciate that grace and recognize, and you'll find yourself having clients of 5 years and 10 years. Some of the clients that we have now have been with us for years and years and years and years and years, and they have no intention of switching out their supplier for what we actually do for them, or looking for a different company, because they like how we operate and they trust us. They trust us. But if I were to clap back every time somebody wrote something that wasn't as smooth as it should have been to me, I'd have a lot fewer clients and I'd have a lot fewer employees. So I always go back to stop, breathe. That helps the brain get things in order, helps you to get your words in order, and then smile. To turn everything into a positive circumstance, no matter how rough it is, so that you don't spend all of your time working on damage control, because we can get stuck with just one email or one comment working on damage control. And that damage control might not last a couple minutes. It might last a week or two of us trying to fix things or trying to heal a relationship.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great. I love that SBS. I'm gonna have to stick another sticky note up here with another note. That's great. I love that. So part of what I think I hear you talking about is this is creating culture, right? Creating a culture inside of the business. It's creating a culture inside of your home, even, right? With your partner, with your kids, if you have them.
Absolutely.
So talk about the importance, because I sort of see this as a really important issue today, more than it's ever been. This whole piece of culture and cultivating the culture that you want inside of your company. And obviously, as you just said, right, it doesn't happen overnight. And unfortunately, when we screw stuff up, it takes us way longer to fix it than if we had done it right to begin with, right? But talk a little bit about that piece.
Oh gosh, we're role models. At the end of the day, as a business owner, people are looking at us. It's our employees, it's our clients. We have a lot of eyes on us. And take a step back sometimes to gauge your emotional intelligence and your self-awareness of how you're showing up in the world. Because people, from a cultural development perspective, you're not just affecting internally what goes on in your company, but how you're perceived by your clients. We can demonstrate, we can role model that behavior all day long. And we might not think, well, so-and-so might think that I'm a softie, or, I've bent over backwards for this person. No, I've still got a strong constitution and a strong backbone, and people know not to use me as a doormat, but I also know how to elegantly operate with grace. And as you do that, your employees see it and take the time to talk to your employees about how to communicate effectively and how to navigate certain waters when it comes to sticky situations. And you'll find that you've got a much more effective workplace and much more easy and smooth lines of communication on all sides.
I love that, right? No, I'm not I'm not a doormat. I have this strong constitution, and yet,
Mhm.
so I think in Brene Brown's words, right? It's that soft heart, no, soft front, strong back, wild heart. I think I always
Mhm.
screw that up, but I think
Mhm.
that's the way it goes. And I think sometimes that's a challenge, right? I mean, so the big joke with me, and you'll I think totally relate to this, is or get it when I say it, right? I say to people, yeah, I'm a Mack truck full of marshmallows, right? Because it's kind of true.
Yeah.
I have that sort of outward, like, let's get things done and all of that. And then, when you poke the Mack truck, it really does flow out with marshmallows. And I think
Mhm.
sometimes, I'm really speaking for myself, but I know enough people who are kind of like me. I think sometimes we do have that feeling of, if I expose the marshmallow, right, somebody's going to take a torch and burn that marshmallow,
Mhm.
right, and it hurts. And because we are all fluff, really, right, we put on that hard exterior. So do you have tools around, like, sort of that piece for people,
Mhm.
of that? How do we create, and again, I kind of asked this before, but in a different way, how do we create that, more of that softness?
Mhm. Well, I think first, Diane, you know, being that truckload of marshmallows is just wonderful. Isn't it great that you're at the point where you can just be this kind, this loving, this supporting, this soft person, but also know that people shouldn't take your kindness for weakness. Just because I've got all this kindness and all this love and all this generosity doesn't mean that you should take it for weakness. And we can create, um, not necessarily a false persona about ourselves. We can actually think about how we should have navigated situations differently in the past to have different outcomes. It's important for us for me as a person of color and also as a member of the LGBT community, to make sure that my ego is in the right space. Each one of us is a little boy or a little girl healing on the inside, some way or another. And that doesn't matter if you're gay or a person of color or whatever. Every single person on this planet is healing in some way or another. And take the time out to reflect upon how you're demonstrating in this world, and reflect on what worked for me in the past or what didn't work for me in the past, and how am I going to learn from this situation to navigate things better in the future. I'm a big old softy. I mean, I'm nice. I tend to give a little bit more than I should. Sometimes I volunteer a little bit more than I should, at the risk of not charging as much as our company should sometimes. I'm getting better at all those things. But deep within, there's this uprising. There's this energy of, I know my value. I know my worth. And when a lot of us are starting out, we think that the nicer we are, the more we give, or if we keep bending over backwards, that client's going to be there to support us. But I've learned in business that if you bend over backward too far, that eventually you're going to break your back. Eventually you're going to break your back. And I've had clients push me too far. And then you learn in business, okay, these are my core values. This is what I stand for. And this is my value. And yes, I am going to send an invoice for it. Or before they move me down that direction that's out of scope, I'm going to make sure that there's funding for it. And when you're running a business, you've got to be remembering, am I running a charity or running a business? You're running a business at the end of the day. You're a subject matter expert, and a person called on you to solve a problem. And when you know how to solve that problem, you deserve to get paid to solve that problem. So it's okay to be smooth. It's okay to be soft. It's okay to be elegant in all those ways. But always remember that your kindness should never be taken for weakness. And if you feel that you are weak, or if you feel that you're a big old truckload of marshmallows, think about what value system you want to have in place, and think about where you want your business to go, because your business is not going to go anywhere if you're consistently being a marshmallow and that backbone's not showing up.
Yeah, that's great advice.
And people want that backbone to show up.
Yeah.
They want it to show up.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. They do. And it's part of, I think, since I use me as an example, I mean, it is a draw. I was talking to a client the other day about something. I said, yeah, I could have been softer on that. And she's like, that's not why I come to you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't come to you to be babied. I come to you for the answers. I come to you for that strength that you,
Right.
In your business knowledge. And so it's that interesting. And I think what it boils down to is what you've said, right? It's being fully who you are, and being aware that you're responsible for how that comes across. And I love the way you use the word grace. I think that's something that I think more people should probably use and be aware of. So,
and we've all got it within us. We've all got it within us. We just need to learn how to tap into it consistently.
Yeah, there you go.
And it'll serve our business as well. It really will.
Yeah. So I want to shift gears just a little bit. Talk about, you're married, you've talked, you're obviously, you just said, as a person of color and as a gay man, has any of that affected, and now you work with your husband, so that's a whole nother conversation we could have, right? The dynamics of that. Has any of that affected you getting clients or relationship with clients or, any of that piece? Have you had to deal with any of that?
I have, but for me, I'll tell you flat out, I think being gay is my superpower. I think being gay is my superpower. I think being a Black man is a superpower for me. I love both of them. I love being gay and I love being Black. I wouldn't change them for the world. And the love that I have for myself is not something that just happened automatically. It's been a journey. I talk about that journey in my book. Maybe we'll talk about the book in a little bit if you want to, Diane, but it was a real struggle to pivot from this hungry, young, high-achieving man who had all this responsibility and who was making all this money to one day having a horrible accident. I'm a drowning survivor. I drowned on August 25th, 2012, and my body was recovered from that accident. And I had brain damage, so I had to recover from all those things. And during that process of healing, there was a 2-year process of just getting my shit in order, reevaluating my life, my relationship with money, my marriage, all those things, and finding a way to love James more than he ever loved himself before. And that journey, Diane, sometimes folks will tell me, well, I'm so sorry that you had your accident or that you had to heal from that or whatever. It's the best thing that ever happened to me. It's the best thing that ever happened to me because it taught me that tomorrow's not guaranteed and that all these gifts that I have and all this knowledge and perspective that I received from the accident and from having been wildly successful and made millions of bucks in my 20s and early 30s, all that stuff took me through a process to become a more humble, kinder, more graceful, more elegant teacher and coach who's a high demonstration of how to run companies really, really well, but also how to take care of people who work for you, how to develop not just from a hard skills perspective in the workplace, but also how do you develop the emotional intelligence and the appreciation for others and the kindness and the grace and all those things. And so having had all those experiences at a really early age, and now I'm 39 years old, I just turned 39, having had all that happen to me, it happened for me. It really, really happened for me. And I get to show up for the rest of my life as a survivor and as somebody who's got this toolkit of how to just be the highest and best version of James at all times. The guy who's not obsessed with making a ton of money or who's not obsessed with buying a new car every year or having flashy friends or any of that stuff, but someone who can just be, someone who can be an expert in his craft and be kind and be a teacher and be a coach. I'm loving it.
Wow. Yeah. And I bet some of those things that you had as before the TBI, the traumatic brain injury, right? See, I know the lingo because I worked I spent 2.5 years working here in Atlanta for the Shepherd Center, which deals in spinal cord and brain injury. And so I bet some of those skills though that you had before helped you get through that piece. And I'm sure that the new skills, right? The patience and some of that was also very, very good as far as you working through that 2-year process of, and I know I'm sure it was both the brain injury and you deciding who you wanted to be and all of that. But wow, now I'm gonna have to read. Now I got to get the book, right? So yeah, I didn't know that.
And it's a forgiveness process too. You forgive yourself and you forgive those people around you. A lot of us have those type A personalities of I want a $1 million business, or I want a $10 million business, or a $100 million business, and I'm willing to do whatever to get there. And you've got so many tools already innately within you to get there. And it doesn't necessarily boil down to working harder or longer hours all the time, but you can show up as a better demonstration of yourself in this world, and opportunities can come to you a lot more easily. Relationships can develop a lot better if we cultivate really, really healthy egos and self-love. And that's pretty awesome when that happens. You get into the state of flow, this state of flow, and then you begin to live in the overflow where blessings just come your way and you get to bless other people. And it's this abundance consciousness that arrived for me, not in my 20s. I mean, I was doing really, really well, but I still felt poor, and I felt poor on the inside, just about how I felt about myself. But then you have this traumatic incident happen to you, and you say, thank God it happened, because it shifted my whole outlook on life, love, happiness, finances, travel, friendships, all those things, and made me a better person.
That's great. That's amazing. What's the biggest challenge that you and hubby have working together in the business? Because there are some. I spent 15 years, doing it. What's the biggest challenge, and how did the skills and abilities that you have in the business that you run help you guys kind of, get through those things?
Well, I'll first say I'm just flat out lucky to be married to my best friend, best friend on earth, and it's been 14 years now. So he and I met on a blind date. We met online, and when he was walking across the parking lot, I was like, "That's who I want to be with for the rest of my life."
Oh, wow.
And then he thought the same thing about me. So we never dated after that. We went on one date, and then we were together. I moved into his house, and then we bought a house within 3 months. We got a dog within a month and a half. And it was just, kind of happily ever after.
Right.
We've had some rough patches too, but the sweetest years have been the years post or after my recovery from my accident, because my whole perspective shifted, and that helped to shift his perspective as well, where instead of, us saying, okay, these are our goals with the business, and this is the strategic plan, and this is what we've got to achieve in this year and 3 years and 5 years and so on, we relaxed in the business a lot. And we relaxed around each other. We became a lot more graceful and kinder in conversation with each other. And we, we'll take breaks in the day and we'll meditate together. Or we'll have certain times at night we'll say, okay, we've been working all day. It's been a long day. Let's shift gears and start talking on a personal level. And let's not talk about business anymore. And we've even got pet names for each other. So I don't call him John in the evening hours, and he doesn't call me James in the evening hours. Once we, have that hard line of, okay, it's 7:45 or whenever that time is. Okay, we're going to shift gears now. We call each other by our pet names. So it's been joyous, Diane. But the biggest challenge, I would say, is we're blessed to be successful, and we train employees and so on. But a lot of the time, the buck stops with the owners, and that means that there's a lot of stuff that we've got to do that other folks just can't do. And we're very good at delegating. And I've got 2 assistants who are wonderful with helping me, and they manage my calendar, my logistics, and all that stuff. And we've got an accounting team and a marketing team and our consulting team and so on. We've got a lot of people who are great at what they do, but not everybody can negotiate the contracts, or not everybody can be responsible for certain components of the business. And we've got a lot of internal things that he and I have to handle that owners just have to handle. They got to roll up their sleeves and get it done. And the more the business grows, the more that those kinds of things we have to do. But it's all good. I'm grateful for the responsibility. I'm grateful for the blessing. But if I could have a twin to handle the ownership stuff, I would certainly give it to the twin.
Absolutely.
And I'd give John's responsibilities to his twin as well.
There you go. And I love this fact that, and I did this. I'm a former partner she had 3 kids that she brought into the relationship. And so one of the agreements that we made early on was, we wanted to have family dinners, and that meant something to me too. Right. And so there was a cutoff, 5 o'clock. That was the time that we agreed that I would stop for the day. And it was a total change for me because, I had gone from working, and then, even in the prior relationship, we'd have dinner and then I'd go back to work. Right. And so now the evening is family time, and it's an adjustment period, but there's something really special about that piece of being able to separate and say, okay, work is done. And now it's time to be, right. It's time to be with you. It's time to be with myself. It's time to go to the gym. It's time for whatever those things are. Right. And to have that. And for me, sometimes it's a physical closing of the door. Mm-hmm. Right. Like closing that door to the office and saying, okay, yeah, exactly. So I love that piece. So let's do this. I want to talk about the book for a few minutes, and then
Sure.
a couple questions as we wrap up here. But so give us a little more information about. I usually do this at the end, and we'll do it again at the end. But I want to make sure we talk about the book and how we get the book, and a little bit more about what the book is about.
Okay. So the title of the book is The Purposeful Millionaire, 52 Rules for Creating a Life of Wealth and Happiness Now. So it kind of chronicles that journey that I went through on with my near-death accident back in 2012, and some of the things that I did to actually get my life in order. And Diane, I lay out 52 rules in the book, things that I've really learned about wealth, happiness, relationships. And I share as much as I can with other folks so that they don't have to have some of the challenges and struggles that I've had. My whole purpose in being here is to help other people and to help them to not struggle as much as I have. I've struggled in business, I've struggled in my relationship, and I've learned a lot. And I'm grateful to be on this advanced track at 39 years old, but I want other folks to succeed and to not have to go through some of the shit that I went through. So I lay it out in this book, and I get real clear about this is what you ought to be doing in your business. This is what you ought to be doing when you wake up in the morning. This is what you ought to be doing when you go to sleep at night. This is how to communicate. And I share some anecdotes and some scenarios of things gone wrong, as well as things that went really, really well. And what I incorporate into my life, into my business affairs on a daily basis, consistently to ensure a happy James and a prosperous business. So it's all there in the 52 rules of The Purposeful Millionaire. And I'll say this too. My publisher is actually LGBT also. So I believe in supporting the LGBT community and minorities. And we have such a great relationship. And you support others, they support you. And that's been a great relationship.
Yeah. And how we met, right? Jen is how we met. And I interviewed Jen as well on the podcast. So yeah, it's a great way certainly to do things. So best business advice that you've ever gotten or that you want to give. And certainly you've already given so much. I almost hate to ask the question, but that's kind of one of the things I always ask. So
thank you. Best business advice that I've ever gotten. And again, money's not everything, but someone set me down early on in my business and he said, well, you're going to be a consultant, and look at the root word of consultant. It's consult. And he said, always remember, you can be very, very smart, but here's the rule. Here's the rule, James. Ask yourself, would you rather be right or would you rather be rich? Not everybody's always going to take your advice. It's not always important to get even or to share with people that they were wrong or whatever. Your job is to consult. And a lot of our business owners could learn that, you know what? It's the customer, it's the client that matters the most, and their decision at the end of the day. We can have an ownership stake in that decision and mentality around it, but it's up to the client's tastes and preferences and where they want to take their business or where they want to take whatever project they're working on. And we are the suppliers at the end of the day. And the better you get at asking questions and moving the conversation in a meaningful way to get to the best possible results for your clients, that's all that matters. It's not important to be right. And it's important to just allow the ego to relax and just focus on your business, because you can make a lot of money doing a lot of things, but people like to do business with folks who they know, they like, and they trust. But if you're constantly thinking about, oh, I got to be right, or they didn't do it my way, you're not going to be rich.
Yeah. And rich comes in more than one aspect, right? I mean, there's money rich, and there's wealth in other aspects of your life.
Absolutely.
Actually,
even the aspect of I feel good about what I did, or I feel great about my work, and I feel great about my relationships. That's abundance right there. Feeling good and being able to go to sleep at night, knowing that you're not going to war with people, Diane, but you're just
providing
value.
Right.
I think the big question ought to be, how can I provide more value? Not how can I be right?
Right.
And that way I'm going to be rich on the inside, and my bank account's going to reflect it too.
Yeah. Too bad we can't make that a rule on social media, right?
Yep.
How can I provide value and not be right? We could go there. So tell us what sort of the where you think our community is going, what the sort of the biggest maybe topic or issue is that the LGBTQ community needs to be thinking about, looking at. What's the next big thing?
I think the biggest thing is that we've got to mobilize and get out and vote. Look at how many rights came to us right and left in a short period of time. We can't take that for granted. And don't forget where you come from, because we can certainly move backward with the wrong people in office. I'm not a political person. I don't put political posts on social media, but 100% of us needs to be voting, and 100% of us needs to be reflecting on these past 3 years and what has happened. It's scary. It's scary for me as a gay man, as someone who's married. It's scary for me as a business owner, and that's where our true power is. In your business, put your money where your mouth is and support other people who might not have as many advantages, or other people who are LGBT. Give people a chance. Give people a chance. I haven't ever been burned by anyone in the LGBT community or any people of color in business. Just hasn't happened. I mean, these are folks who want a chance. They wanted to work with our company. I gave them a chance. They did a good job. And I'm really, really proud of that. But the main thing is to vote, support the community financially, give them your time. But don't forget where you come from, because things can go back very quickly. And we don't want to be on the other side of history a year from now, or 4 or 5 years from now. We've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, we certainly do. Yeah, I love that. I think that was great. That was great. So James, give us again your contact information. How do we get in touch with you? You talked about the book. I'm assuming Amazon or wherever people buy books, they can find that.
Amazon, Barnes & Noble. Yep. So you can find the book at jamesonamazon.com. The title's The Purposeful Millionaire, 52 Rules for Creating a Life of Wealth and Happiness Now. You can also find me on my website for executive coaching or for keynote speaking. That's James Nowlin, Nowlin.com. And then you can find our corporate consulting company at www.excelglobalpartners.com.
Perfect. Well, this has been, I'm going to go back and listen to this. So hopefully everybody else will too, multiple times. I am thrilled that we spent some time together. I would love to potentially talk to you again at some point and do another interview, because I think there's so much that we could expound on and really get into some nitty gritty. So I'm going to go to Amazon and get the book here as soon as we finish up. I want to read it. So thank you so much for the honor and the blessing of your time, which is something that is invaluable, and I understand that and value that. So I want to thank you for that. Again, thank you guys for tuning in to Queer Profits Podcast, where we certainly today talked about all 3 of our pillars, right? Community, inclusion, and growth in so many ways, right? I mean, those 3 things were certainly in there. So again, I would highly recommend that you go back and listen to this multiple times, because there were a lot of nuggets that James shared, and I'm just thrilled to have had the experience myself and for my listeners. So James, thank you very much again, and you guys have a great day. Until next time, I'm Diane Conklin with the Queer Profits Podcast.